How can you get your work discovered as a photographer? I think this is a question that many of us ask ourselves at one point or another, especially if we're just starting out in photography and we're trying to get more clients. I have definitely been there. Some of you who watch my channel might be stock photographers, but you're wondering how can you get more paying clients to hire you for events and things like that. So in this video, I'm just going to talk about a few different ways that I personally have gotten my work exposed to the point where somebody has either hired me or bought one of my photos. Before I get into these tips, make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any new videos that I release. All right, so one of the first ways that I got my photos discovered was actually through blogging. Before I was a photographer, I was a writer, and I still am, and I would freelance for lots of different publications, including National Geographic, The Huffington Post, USA Today, and a couple of other smaller publications. Once I bought a camera, I started submitting photos with my articles, so I was actually getting some of my photos out in these big publications. The very first photo that I ever sold was actually a photo that I included with a blog post that I wrote for National Geographic. After publishing that blog post, a newspaper in Norway actually contacted me and asked me if they could license the photo. I actually made a video talking about that whole experience, which I will link in the description below. But basically, if you are a writer, if you're putting your writing out there, blogging is a perfect opportunity to also include your photos and get a little bit more publicity for you, not just as a writer, but also as a photographer. Now, the biggest and most influential platform for me to gain exposure as a photographer has actually been social media. And that includes Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the platforms. When I was just starting out as a photographer, I was primarily taking photos of people I knew and posting those on social media, which then resulted in other people reaching out to me and contacting me to do photos for them. Facebook has actually led to a lot of photo opportunities for me, Instagram a little bit, but for me personally, Facebook has been the biggest social media channel where I have received exposure as a photographer. And that's not just by posting photos on my own page, but it's by also having photos posted by friends, publications, or people that I worked for on their Facebook pages, which then linked back to my page. Another way to get your photos noticed is by having them be shown in exhibitions or, galleries. This is personally something that I don't do, but I do have a friend who does this all the time. She's more of a landscape photographer, and she has all of her photos on display at various galleries and exhibitions all the time. Sometimes you might have to pay to have your photos showcased at these exhibitions. Other times you don't have to pay. It just depends. But another way you can have your photos displayed is go to a local coffee shop in your area or some sort of business and ask them if they would put your photos on display for a certain amount of time. This would, 1, give you exposure, and 2, it would also provide the establishment with some beautiful artwork on their walls for which they don't have to pay for, so it's a win-win for both of you. Next is get your photos into newspapers or online news media. I have a video where I talk about how to get published in newspapers. I'll link to that below as well. But basically, this is something that I've done quite a bit, considering my background in journalism. By getting my photos into different newspapers, magazines, and print publications, I have gained a little bit of exposure for my photography that way. And this has basically proven to other publications that I want to work for that I have experience doing photojournalism and news photography. Next is flyers. A lot of times if you go to a school or a workplace or even a grocery store, they'll have like a little area where people can hang up advertisements and things like that. Even at my local giant grocery store, there's a billboard where people can hang up flyers that advertise their businesses. And I often look at these flyers and sometimes I actually have an interest in something. And I have actually hung my own flyers there before as well. Honestly, this hasn't been too successful for me, but I also haven't put that much effort into promoting myself this way. But this might be something that you want to look at if you know an area where you can hang up a couple business cards or flyers. And one of the biggest ways that I have actually gotten photography gigs is through word of mouth. When I do a good job for someone and someone's really happy with my photos, a lot of the times they're gonna talk to a friend and tell them about it, and maybe that friend is also looking for a photographer. So I've gotten probably half of my gigs through referrals or word of mouth, because I'll have people contact me out of the blue all the time saying, hey, I heard that you took photos of so-and-so. Can you do this for me as well? So word of the mouth is personally a big one for me. I think it's a big one for a lot of photographers. People like to hire people that they've heard about, who they know have done a good job. So, definitely keep good relations with the people you've already done photos for. Maybe they'll refer you in the future. Building off of this, if you have taken photos for somebody and they post those photos on social media, ask them to always link back to your page. If you have a Facebook photography page, ask them to tag that page when they're posting the photos that you took. This will bring more people to your page, or if somebody is looking for a photographer, they already know who to find. And next, start a channel of your own. This does not have to be a YouTube channel, it could be a website or a blog, but basically create searchable content on the internet about photography that will also bring people to you as a photographer, and these people might end up hiring you or buying a photo, or basically just promoting you to others. Instead of blogging for others, you could always blog for yourself or start your own YouTube channel. But basically, you just want to get yourself out there as much as you can on the internet. The more places you put yourself, the more chances you have of having your photography discovered and getting more clients through those discoveries. Of course, there are lots of other ways to get discovered as a photographer as well. So let me know in the comments, how do clients primarily find you? Is it through your website? Are you listed somewhere as a photographer? Is it through social media or word of mouth? I'm really curious how people find you. In this increasingly competitive era, being discovered as a photographer can get really difficult, so you definitely want to put your eggs in lots of different baskets. Hope this was helpful. Subscribe if you're new here. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, or a thumbs down if you didn't, but hopefully it's a thumbs up, and enjoy the rest of your day.